of quick and easy concept based learning. This is my continuation of the lecture on fibrous dysplasia. In the previous lecture we had discussed about the clinical features and pathogenesis. So the remaining part I will complete in this video. Moving on to the radiographic features of fibrous dysplasia. It is extremely variable because the lesion keeps maturing, and initially it is a fibrous stroma and then eventually mineralization takes place. So depending on which stage the tumor is, or sorry, the lesion is, the radiographic appearance is also changing. So initially when the trabeculations or when the mineralization is very minimal, you see a small or a large radiolucency. Small, then it will be unilocular, and if it is a larger lesion it will be multilocular. Radiolucency will be seen. Radiolucency because resorption has taken place. Okay, and it is now, what is the process going on here? It is now going to form new bone. Okay, not mature bone, obviously unhealthy bone, but new mineralization is going to start. So in the initial stages we will see a radiolucency with some fine trabeculations because mineralization is very minimal. Trabeculations. Then in the later stage, as the lesion progresses, what happens? The trabeculations or the mineralizations increase. So you will see a similar appearance here. Apart from that, similar to one, but apart from that the radio opacities will increase. Okay, so you will see more of radio opaque flecks or trabeculations. So this will give the radiograph a mottled appearance. Mottled appearance. Now again the lesion is continuing to progress, so mineralization is taking place further. So what happens now is there is complete opacity. Okay, so you will see an extreme radio opaque lesion. This type of lesion will give you an appearance of ground glass or pure D orange, which is nothing but orange peel appearance. So this is a characteristic of fibrous dysplasia. It is characteristic of fibrous dysplasia. So whenever, because this is the most mature lesion, okay, of fibrous dysplasia, most mature stage. So the appearance will look like just like the glass panes which are present on your in the bathrooms, frosted glass appearance. So a similar appearance will be appreciated in the radiograph. Okay. Now, be it any stage, there is one thing which is common in all these stages of fibrous dysplasia that you see on the radiograph, and that thing is it is not a well circumscribed lesion. Very, very important, and again characteristic of fibrous dysplasia. It is not a well circumscribed lesion. And when you see it in the radiograph, it will appear as if it is blending into the adjacent normal bone. Okay, that is again characteristic. Blends into the adjacent bone. Now why am I focusing or stressing on this particular point is because this will help you in differentiating fibrous dysplasia from a very, very similar lesion, that is ossifying fibroma. Ossifying fibroma is a well circumscribed lesion and it is well encapsulated, whereas fibrous dysplasia is not. Okay, so that is again another point to remember. Now, having discussed actually how the lesion looks, let us see how the adjacent structures are affected in the radiograph. So, there is displacement of the root because of the expansion of the bone, displacement of roots, and at the same time the roots exhibit severe resorption too. Resorption. Then the craniofacial fibrous dysplasia, in those cases you will see a characteristic thickening at the base of the skull. Another important point which you appreciate in the craniofacial type, thickening at the base of the skull. Now why is this happening is, this fibrous dysplasia, it grows concentrically, that is from the medullary part, which is the center part of the bone, towards the periphery, that is the cortex. So as it moves towards the cortex, what happens is the base of the skull or the periphery will become thick. Okay. So this is about the radiographical features. Moving on to the histopathology. See, fibrous dysplasia is a fibro-osseous lesion. So always remember, histopathology, you will see two main parts, the fibrous part and the osseous part. So let us discuss it separately. What we see, if you appreciate the picture here, so we are saying two parts. Let us concentrate on the fibrous part first. So the fibrous stroma, it is essentially a fibroblastic stroma, where you see lot of these cells. You will see these cells are nothing but fibroblasts. Okay, when you focus more or when you watch it under the high magnification, the cells will appear spindle shaped, like the fibroblast, characteristic of fibroblast. And few here and there you are seeing some fine collagen fibers. So it's not very fibrous. Okay, the collagen fibers are fine and interlacing. So this is about the fibrous part. Moving on to the osseous part, these red color structures that you see are nothing but the irregular trabeculae of the bone that is formed. Okay, and if you appreciate the structure, it is definitely not the normal lamellar bone that we see. Instead, it is a immature woven bone. Okay, and one more important characteristic, that you don't see any osteoblast lining the periphery of the bone, which is normally seen, because normally if you see if you appreciate the histology of the bone, you will appreciate that the periphery or the bone is lined by osteoblast. That osteoblastic rimming is absent in fibrous dysplasia. Again, further stressing the fact that this is not normal bone. Okay. One more thing, irregular bony trabeculae, some authors have shown or some authors have considered this to be C-shaped or Chinese letter pattern. Okay, they have described these irregular bony trabeculae as C-shape or Chinese letter pattern. Again, characteristic of fibrous dysplasia. So, fibrous dysplasia, what are the three? There are three main points to be remembered. The fibrous stroma is essentially fibroblastic, where you see a lot of fibroblasts and some interlacing collagen fibers. Then you see irregular bony trabeculae. These bony trabeculae do not have osteoblastic rimming. These that you see, these are osteocytes. Okay, these are also present in normal bone. So the osteoblastic rimming is absent, which is normally seen in the bone, and that osteoblastic rimming is absent. So these are the three main features that you need to remember about fibrous dysplasia. Next, let us see about the malignant transformation of fibrous dysplasia. There are usually a very few cases which transform into malignancy, and the rate is 0.4 to 1% of the cases. So very few percentage of cases transform into malignancy. Now, if even though they transform, which tumors do they transform into? Now, as as we have discussed in histopathology that there are two main components, the fibrous part and the osseous part. So either the fibrous part can go malignant or the osseous part can go malignant. If the osseous part goes malignant, the malignant tumor of bone is called as osteosarcoma. So it can transform into osteosarcoma. Similarly, if the fibrous part is malignant, it will transform into fibrosarcoma, malignant tumor of fibrosarcoma. Then, other mineralized tissue that is often seen as chondrosarcoma, other mineralized tissue is cartilage, and if sometimes the malignancy can be chondrosarcoma associated with fibrous dysplasia. Okay, so these are the three main malignant tumors that the fibrous dysplasia can transform into. One important part here to remember is most of this malignant transformation occurs because of the therapeutic radiation. So the radiation that is taken as a part of the treatment for fibrous dysplasia can sometimes cause the malignant transformation. And interestingly, it is found that females are more commonly affected than males. And the reason for this is the same reason why females have more pain during pregnancy and menstruation, that is increased estrogen levels. So females are exposed to increased estrogen levels, and that, according to some authors, have contributed to the increased rate of transformation into malignancy. Okay. Having completed the malignant transformation, we will now talk about the lab findings in fibrous dysplasia. The lab findings are usually not very characteristic, but in some cases of craniofacial dysplasia, fibrous dysplasias, we have observed increased serum alkaline phosphatase levels. However, this is not as characteristic as we see in Paget's disease, but we do have appreciated in some cases. Next, the second test that we have to do is the thyroid function test. Thyroid function test is generally done to exclude hyperthyroidism. And why this has to be excluded? Because this bony lesions are quite similar to fibrous dysplasia, so that has to be excluded. Moving on to the treatment of fibrous dysplasia. The treatment is generally conservative, okay, and the main focus is given to prevent any kind of deformity in the patients. So generally the patients, the age group which is affected is the young age group, right? So aesthetic factor is a very major factor that determines the treatment. So the expansion that is caused by fibrous dysplasia has to be contoured properly. So that is the conservative approach. Along with that, we also give vitamin D supplements for better mineralization of the bone, and some bisphosphonates are given. These bisphosphonates are given to ameliorate the pain which is caused by the lesion. Okay, so this completes the fibrous dysplasia. If you have any doubts, you can always contact me in the comment section, and if you like my video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Okay, thank you. Keep watching the same lecture series for other fibro-osseous lesions also, and don't forget to check out the key points that I've put at the end of the lecture. Okay, just for a quick recap. Thank you. All the best.